The scorching midday sun poured its fiery glow across the grasslands, painting long shadows of swaying acacia trees on the golden earth. The air was thick with heat and a quiet tension, broken only by the chirrups of cicadas and the occasional distant call of a bird of prey. Beyond the rolling savanna stretched the familiar silhouette of Mount Kilangwe, its rocky slopes a guardian presence over the land. This was a place where harmony and danger constantly wrestled, where life and death balanced on fragile threads. On this particular day, a tremor of unease rippled across the herds. A warning had traveled faster than the wind. A giant python had slithered from its deep jungle lair, hungrier than ever and bold enough to stray toward the watering holes that gave life to both prey and predator alike. Whispers moved between antelopes and warthogs, between hornbills and baboons, carried like dry leaves in a restless breeze. Few dared venture close to the marshes anymore. But the python had not come simply for hunger. It had wrapped itself around something more delicate, more innocent, a young elephant calf known across the grasslands for its endless play. The calf, named Nyoka by the herd, loved splashing in puddles, chasing butterflies, and trumpeting gleefully as it darted between its mother's legs. Nyoka was the pride of the matriarchal herd, a symbol of joy and continuation. And now, Nyoka's high-pitched cries carried across the plains, desperate and muffled, calling for help. It was into this crisis that a band of unlikely heroes stepped forward. They were not kings or seasoned warriors. They were animals of courage, each with their own scars, their own histories, bound by friendship and a shared sense of duty. At the center was Kifaru, the fearless black rhinoceros. His skin bore ridges like armor, and his single horn curved proudly, scarred at the tip from countless battles with hyenas and foolish lions. To most, Kifaru was a creature of brute force, but beneath his heavy frame lived a heart guided by loyalty and justice. Beside him trotted Nia, the cheetah, her golden coat dotted with sleek black spots that shimmered when she moved. She was fast, yes, but it was her sharp wit and boundless optimism that had earned her the trust of her friends. Then there was Jabari, the clever meerkat, small but endlessly resourceful. He could dig tunnels faster than a shadow could move across the ground and saw things others overlooked. And last was Tembo, an old bull elephant with tusks curved like ivory crescents. Though his strength had waned with the seasons, his wisdom and calm spirit often guided the group when chaos struck. It was Jabari who first brought news of Nyoka's plight. "I saw it with my own eyes," he squeaked, scrambling up a rock to make himself taller before his towering companions. The python's thicker than a baobab root and twice as long as 3 giraffes lined up. It's coiled around Nyoka near the marsh, squeezing tighter with every cry. Kifaru stamped his massive foot, the ground trembling beneath him. "Then there's no time to lose. We go now." "Wait," Tembo rumbled, his deep voice like rolling thunder. "A python of that size is not easily beaten. We must think. Think while Nyoka is suffocating." Kifaru snapped, his horn tossing in agitation. Nia interjected, her voice like a swift breeze. "Both of you are right. We must hurry, but without a plan we risk more lives than we save." Her amber eyes flickered toward Jabari. "You saw the scene. Tell us everything, the ground, the water, the trees. No detail is too small." Jabari took a deep breath and described the marsh. Tall reeds grew along the edges, with one lone acacia leaning at an angle nearby. The python was partly submerged in shallow water, its coils shimmering darkly, and Nyoka was pinned on his side, crying and writhing. Tembo's tusks gleamed in thought. "The marsh gives us both an advantage and a danger. Water can slow even the strongest grip, but one wrong step and we sink too deep." Nia's tail flicked, restless. "Then speed is our ally. If I distract the python with movement, Kifaru can strike its coils. Tembo, you can use your tusks to pry Nyoka free. And Jabari." The meerkat puffed up his chest. "I'll scout from above the reeds and warn you of its strikes. I'm small, I can weave through without being noticed." Kifaru huffed, but nodded. "So be it." For Nyoka. Together, the 4 friends set out toward the marsh. The journey was tense, each step heavy with the knowledge of the peril ahead. Birds fell silent as they drew closer, as though the savanna itself held its breath. When they reached the edge of the reeds, the sight before them froze their hearts. The python was monstrous beyond imagination, scales glistening like wet obsidian, each the size of a hoof. Its body coiled and uncoiled with terrible rhythm, muscles rippling with ancient strength. Nyoka's cries were weaker now, his eyes rolling in panic as he struggled to breathe. A silence fell over the heroes, broken only by the hiss of the python as its head rose, tongue flicking, sensing intruders. Nia was the first to move. She darted across the reeds with blinding speed, her body a blur of golden fire. The python's head snapped toward her, striking like a whip, but Nia was faster, leaping aside, her paws barely touching the ground. She hissed back at the snake, drawing its focus. Kifaru charged then, a thunderous force shaking the marsh. He lowered his horn and rammed the python's coiled midsection. The impact sent ripples through the water, but to his shock, the python's flesh did not break. Instead, the snake whipped its tail, slamming into Kifaru's side and nearly toppling the massive rhino. Tembo waded forward, his great ears fanned wide, his tusks angled toward Nyoka. "Hold on, little one," he rumbled, voice shaking with urgency. He pressed his tusks beneath the python's coil, straining to lift. The muscles resisted, clamping tighter around the calf. Meanwhile, Jabari scrambled up the leaning acacia tree, chattering frantic warnings. "Left! Strike from the left! It's turning its head! Watch out, Nia!" The battle raged like storm against storm. Nia danced with the serpent, narrowly escaping each strike, her breath quick but her eyes sharp. Kifaru struck again and again, bruising the snake but unable to pierce its armor. Tembo grunted with the effort of prying the coils apart, the veins on his temples throbbing. It seemed impossible, until Nyoka, in his desperation, let out a thin trumpet, not of fear but of defiance. The sound startled the python, just enough to slacken its grip. "Now!" roared Tembo. With one mighty surge, Kifaru slammed his horn against the snake's lower coils while Tembo pushed upward with all his strength. The python hissed, its body convulsing. In that brief moment, Nia lunged, claws slashing across the serpent's eye. The python recoiled, thrashing in fury, releasing Nyoka at last. The calf stumbled free, gasping, collapsing into the shallow water. Tembo immediately shielded him with his massive body, tusks swinging to ward off the snake's return. But the python was not done. With a terrifying speed, it coiled its massive length toward Nia, wrapping around her lithe frame. Her cries rang out as the pressure built. "Nia!" shouted Kifaru, rage igniting in his chest. He charged with a ferocity unlike before, horn lowered like a lance of vengeance. The impact this time drove the python against a rock, cracking scales. Nia slipped free, coughing but alive. The python, wounded and enraged, lifted its head high, towering over them all, its jaws gaping to reveal curved fangs and the darkness of death itself. Tembo stepped forward, his eyes blazing with ancient fire. "You shall not claim another," he thundered. Lifting his trunk, he trumpeted with such force that the sound reverberated across the plains, a call of power and defiance that shook the courage of even predators lurking afar. Kifaru joined, stamping his feet in rhythm, the ground trembling like an earthquake. Nia, though weak, growled, her tail lashing. Even Jabari stood tall on the acacia, chattering with fearless defiance. Together, their unity shone brighter than any fang or coil. The python hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered in its cold eyes. It had expected easy prey, but what it faced was a bond stronger than hunger. With a final hiss that echoed like a dying storm, it slithered back into the reeds, its massive body retreating into shadow. Exhausted but triumphant, the heroes gathered around Nyoka. The calf lifted his head weakly, trunk curling around Tembo's tusk in gratitude. "You are safe now," Tembo whispered, his great heart swelling with relief. Nia licked her wounds, offering a tired smile. You gave us quite a scare, little one. Promise us you'll save your games for butterflies, not pythons." Jabari clambered down, his fur still bristling with adrenaline. "That was the scariest thing I've ever seen, and the most incredible. We did it. We really did it." Kifaru lowered his head toward Nyoka, his voice softer than the wind. "You are part of this land, little elephant. And as long as we stand, no shadow shall take you from it." The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of amber and crimson. The marsh, once a place of dread, now echoed with the gentle sound of Nyoka's playful trumpets, restored and free. Birds returned to the reeds, singing once more. Word of the hero's victory spread quickly across the plains. From wildebeests to zebras, from hornbills to hyraxes, animals spoke of the fearless band who had confronted the giant python to save one innocent life. Their courage became legend, told in whispers beneath the stars and in triumphant cries at dawn. But to the heroes themselves, it was not glory they sought. It was the simple joy of seeing Nyoka dance again in the golden grass, his trunk raised to the sky in laughter. That was victory enough. And so, as night fell and the stars stitched themselves across the velvet sky, the friends stood together, gazing out over the land they loved. They knew challenges would come again, hyenas in the night, droughts, storms, and perhaps even the python once more. But they also knew that together, bound by courage and trust, they could face whatever darkness rose from the shadows. For in their unity, there was a power no serpent could ever crush. And somewhere in the tall grass, Nyoka's trumpet rang out again, high and playful, a song of life that promised the savanna would endure.